Incident number 1. On the warm spring afternoon of May 14, 1610, in Paris, King Henry IV entered the royal carriage, expecting a quiet ride to attend a banquet in his honor. The streets were lined with citizens celebrating, unaware that hidden among them was a woman with deadly intentions. The king greeted his ministers and nobles, smiling as he passed, oblivious to the lethal plan unfolding. At the banquet, Henriette d'Entraigues, a member of the royal court, slipped a poisoned drink into the king's goblet. The liquid, invisible yet deadly, traveled swiftly through Henry's body, initiating a slow, burning agony. Minutes later, the king's face turned pale as dizziness swept over him, his limbs growing weak beneath the royal attire. He staggered through the banquet hall, clutching his stomach, the crowd unsure whether to cheer or scream. Noblemen rushed to the king's side, but the poison was fast-acting, attacking his heart and digestive system simultaneously. His vision blurred, and Henry IV collapsed onto the marble floor, leaving the royal hall in chaos. Attempts to revive him with herbal concoctions and hot compresses proved futile against the chemical assault. Pain twisted his face as his internal organs were burned from within, a silent scream escaping his lips. Over the next 20 minutes, Henry IV drifted between consciousness and darkness, unable to call for help. The queen and children were ushered away, their faces pale as they realized the severity of the attack. Guards attempted to chase down the woman, but she disappeared into the city streets before justice could be served. By the time the poison fully took hold, King Henry IV had succumbed, leaving France stunned and mourning. The banquet that had promised celebration became a sight of horror, forever etched into royal history. Historians continue to debate whether this assassination was personal revenge or political maneuvering. King Henry IV's death was not from battle, disease, or accident, but from a silent, deliberate act of betrayal in his own court. Incident number 2. On June 13, 1886, in the Kingdom of Bavaria, Germany, King Ludwig II stepped out of his guarded castle for what would become the final walk of his life. The once beloved monarch had been declared mentally unstable only days earlier and quietly placed under house arrest by his own government. That evening, as dark clouds gathered over Lake Starnberg, Ludwig requested a private walk with only one doctor accompanying him. The guards followed from a distance as the king and doctor slowly vanished into the deepening fog near the water's edge. Hours passed, and when the men did not return, unease spread through the silent shoreline like a sickness. Near midnight, lantern light revealed a horrifying discovery floating near the shallow edge of the lake. King Ludwig's lifeless body was found face up, his cold hands frozen in a stiff and unnatural position. Only feet away, the body of the doctor was also recovered, twisted in a position that suggested violent struggle. The official report claimed the king had drowned, yet Ludwig was known to be a powerful swimmer throughout his life. No water was found in his lungs during examination, deepening suspicion around his mysterious death. Dark bruises were quietly noted on his arms and neck, marks never explained to the public. Whispers spread that the king had fought someone in his final moments beneath the moonlit sky. Some believed he was murdered to silence him, while others claimed despair drove him into the Black Lake. The truth disappeared beneath the dark surface of Lake Starnberg along with his final breath. Within hours, Bavaria announced the king had died peacefully, avoiding any mention of struggle or violence. But the injuries on Ludwig's body did not match the calm story told by the crown. His unfinished castles stood empty afterward, massive stone dreams abandoned with their creator. And so the midnight lake swallowed not only a king's body, but the truth of how King Ludwig II truly died in 1886. Incident number 3. On the night of March 16, 1792, inside the Royal Opera House of Stockholm, Sweden, King Gustav III walked into what he believed would be a night of celebration. The grand masquerade ball was filled with music, perfume, and noble disguises that hid not only faces but deadly intentions. Unknown to the king, several nobles in attendance had already chosen this night for his execution. As Gustav moved through the crowd greeting guests, a masked man quietly closed the distance behind him. At close range, The assassin raised his pistol and fired directly into the king's lower back. The gunshot echoed through the ballroom as Gustav collapsed among dancers who initially believed it was part of the performance. Blood quickly soaked through his royal costume as panic replaced music inside the opera hall. Guards rushed toward the fallen king as the assassin vanished into the masked chaos. Gustav remained conscious as he was carried away, aware that his life had been violently rerouted toward death. Surgeons quickly examined the wound and discovered shattered bone and metal fragments buried deep inside his body. Infection began spreading within days, turning the king's recovery into a slow internal execution. His fever climbed relentlessly as his organs struggled against the growing poison of rot. For nearly 2 weeks, Gustav drifted between delirium and clarity, fully aware that death was tightening its grip. On March 29, 1792, the infection invaded his chest and lungs, stealing his ability to breathe normally. His final breaths came in short, broken gasps as the Masquerade night replayed silently in his fading mind. When King Gustav III died, the room fell into a quiet so deep it exposed the horror of royal vulnerability. The assassin was later caught and executed, but the conspiracy behind the shooting remained tangled in politics. And so Sweden's king was not taken by war or accident, but by a single masked bullet fired in the middle of celebration. Incident number 4. On February 1, 1908, in Lisbon, Portugal, King Carlos I rode through the capital in an open royal carriage, unaware that his final journey had already begun. Beside him sat his wife Queen Amelie and their 2 sons, returning from a quiet stay outside the city. Lisbon's central square appeared peaceful, but hidden among the citizens were men who had come to kill the king. As the carriage slowed near the Terreiro do Paco, one assassin stepped forward from the crowd. Without warning, the first rifle shot cracked through the open air of the square. The bullet struck King Carlos in the neck, snapping his body violently backward onto the carriage seat. Before the guards could react, a second assassin rushed forward with a hidden weapon. More shots rang out, and the king's body slumped sideways against his family. His elder son, Crown Prince Luis Felipe, stood to protect his wounded father. In the next instant, the prince was also struck by gunfire and fell across the carriage floor. Panic exploded across the square as civilians scattered in every direction. The royal guards finally returned fire, killing one assassin on the spot. The second assassin was captured moments later after being beaten by enraged soldiers. King Carlos was already beyond saving as the carriage rushed toward the palace. The official announcement confirmed that Portugal's king had died in the street during daylight. The assassination shattered the monarchy's image of control and authority in a single afternoon. Within 2 years, the Portuguese monarchy would completely collapse, and so King Carlos I met his end not on a battlefield, but in the open streets of his own capital in 1908. Incident number 5. In the cold corridors of St. Michael's Castle, Tsar Paul I of Russia prepared for a quiet evening, unaware that his guards were plotting his death. The Tsar had become increasingly paranoid, alienating his nobles and creating enemies even among his closest advisors. On the night of March 23, a group of officers entered the castle under the guise of loyalty. Tsar Paul was seized in his chambers, stunned and struggling, unable to comprehend the betrayal unfolding before him. His captors dragged him through the hallways, the Tsar's shouts echoing against the marble floors. Soldiers forced him onto a couch, restraining his arms and legs as he thrashed violently. An officer struck him repeatedly with a blunt object, delivering fatal blows to the chest and head. Paul's body convulsed with each impact, the room echoing with sickening thuds. Despite the struggle, the officers continued, ensuring the Tsar would not rise again. Eventually, Paul I lay lifeless, his crown falling from his head to the marble floor. The conspirators quickly cleaned the scene and reported to the imperial court that the Tsar had died suddenly in his sleep. News of the assassination spread rapidly, sending shockwaves through St. Petersburg and the Russian nobility. Paul's death marked a violent transition of power, paving the way for his son Alexander I to assume the throne. Historians note that Paul's erratic behavior and paranoia directly contributed to the extreme measures taken against him. The collapsing throne became a chilling example of palace intrigue and the deadly consequences of isolation. Officers involved were never severely punished, demonstrating the ruthless pragmatism of Russian politics at the time. Tsar Paul I's death left a permanent mark on the imperial family, altering the course of Russian history forever. And so the ruler who had tried to control his court was himself undone by those he trusted most. Incident number 6. In the royal court of Amrapura, Burma, a notorious prisoner awaited execution, summoned before King Bodawpaya for crimes against the crown. The king, a ruler famed for both grandeur and cruelty, had decreed that the prisoner would meet death by royal elephant. On a scorching morning, the execution ground was prepared in the palace courtyard, lined with spectators in tense anticipation. The prisoner was led to the center of the courtyard, shackled and trembling, his face pale with dread. With a deafening trumpet, the king's elephant was guided forward, its massive feet leaving deep marks on the ground. The prisoner attempted to cry for mercy, but his voice was lost amidst the trumpeting and gasps of the crowd. Slowly, deliberately, the elephant's weight descended upon the condemned man, bones and flesh crushed beneath its massive frame. Spectators turned away, unable to watch the full horror, while others stood frozen in fascination at the raw display of power. The prisoner's struggles ended quickly, leaving only a faint twitch as the elephant stepped back. King Bodawpaya watched without emotion, his face a mask of cold authority as the execution concluded. The elephant, trained for such deadly tasks, returned to the stables, leaving the courtyard stained with the grim reminder of royal justice. Rumors of the king's cruelty spread across Burma, instilling fear in both nobles and commoners alike. No trial could save those who crossed the monarch, as Bodawpaya's wrath was swift, absolute, and terrifying. For decades, the royal elephant became an instrument of state terror, a living executioner under the king's command. Visitors to the court noted the horror of watching a life extinguished beneath the heavy foot of the monarch's chosen beast. The execution left a permanent mark on the collective memory of the Burmese people, blending fear with awe. Even today, historians recount the story as a chilling example of absolute power wielded without mercy. And so, the elephant execution remains one of history's most brutal methods of royal justice, a testament to cruelty codified by monarchy.